All right, what are we doing? Info dumping and correctivitis? Like the need to correct. Oh God. Strap in, get ready.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, there goes my stirrup. Oh crap. I was right. We should have kept the leather. Yeah, okay. All right, here we go.
Do we even need an introduction?
Do we?
No. You can correct me if you want.
We're already sort of talking about what we're going to talk about.
We are. I mean, we're in it.
We're in it. I heard the most awesome term about this the other day, and correctivitis. And I thought that sums it up beautifully. Like this need that when you see someone saying something wrong or their fact is wrong, oh my God, God forbid it's a special interest of yours and someone says something slightly not correct. We lose our minds. It sort of reminds me of, did you ever used to watch the Ren and Stimpy show?
Of course.
Cartoon? There's one in there where they tell Stimpy he can't hit that red button. And it's just, and of course, the fact that they told him he can't, he's like, and then the guy picks him up and he's like, you want to push the shiny candy apple red button. And then of course he does, he can't take it. That's what correctivitis sometimes feels like to me. Like when someone says something and then
oh my God.
I think it's where we get our reputation as kind of being like know-it-alls.
The little professors like that's another word that I hear a lot, the little professors. So this of course doesn't apply to me. I'm not nearly smart enough for that. But
I've heard people say that they've been called that as a kid, which is fine, yes. But then they reach adulthood and you do it. And now all of a sudden people get mad at you when you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they think you're being like an a-hole or like.
Yeah. Or like stuck
arrogant
up. I used to get a lot of you're arrogant or you're stuck up. And I'm like, no, I'm just not really. So that's been a really important learning curve for me is to know to know when to say it or if to say it and how to say it. Because when you come in and you're like, well, actually, versus right?
my daughter and her friends make fun of it, and they're like, well, actually, and they put up their finger. Well, actually.
Is that how you do it? Actually.
Well, actually.
Oh my God. We have a little nephew that would do when he learned to say actually, and to see this little 4-year-old go, well, actually.
Well, actually.
But so and I'm going to do that now. Well, actually.
With the finger. You have to do it with the finger. Yeah. For those of you in just the audio space, it's, just like the one finger pointing up, like I have a point to make. Well, actually.
Yeah. Actually. Which it's so funny because like on the receiving end of that, I've been on the receiving end of that as a professor many, many times from neurodivergent or neurotypical students. Mm-hmm. And I learned really early to not be defensive about it. Like, oh yeah, bring in more info and I don't know everything. But for me, I get in more trouble as the corrector than the correctee. And really tone does make a difference for everything. Yeah. And sort of what I finally did was watch my colleagues one day. I'm like, how they just did it and it was fine. What was different there? And they'll say something like, it's like the sandwich. What do they say? The compliment sandwich. Like, that was such a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. You're making me think about something that I hadn't thought about. And then I wonder about this other thing. But your point was really good. And then I'm like, I really have to like pet them and say, there's so many things that feed into that. It's so much work. I just want to say, yeah, that's wrong. And you just can't.
And actually,
you're
actually.
Actually.
That's another shirt.
Yeah.
Dana and I's head swirling down a drain. And then her, actually.
Actually. I know more about this than you do. But then also like sometimes you've used this term before and it was a term I learned for the first time, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Is this the hill you want to die on? Is
this the hill you want to die on?
Because sometimes, but it really does feel like that Ren and Stimpy thing where I'll literally sometimes be in a meeting and I'll make my arms crossed really tight so I can't move my hands. Maybe then I can't do the actually thing. And I'll literally bite my tongue and I'll say in my head, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But I'll have to say to myself, like, now is it going to add anything? Is it going to help anything? Is this a hill I want to die on? Is this a essential thing that if I don't talk about it, something really bad's going to happen? If the answer is no to all of those, and if it's a particular one or two colleagues of mine, I don't say anything because I know it's like going to be like I'm just like pouring gasoline on a fire with a couple of them if I correct them. It's just not worth it, right? But that's been a really painful lesson to have to learn, and to have to let it go feels really crappy. Yeah. But the framing is like, wait a minute, my choosing to not say anything is different than I can't say anything. And that's the locus. That's exactly that locus of control that we've talked about. Yep.
Locus of control is incredibly, I think, huge. And, you know, I find that I only feel this way, this kind of building pressure, I'll call it, like, you know, when I'm in an IEP with really, really awful people and we're writing IEP goals like, when bullied, Jimmy will use a coping strategy. And people are talking and, you know, and then I'm like, hold up, mother beepers. That's what I want to say.
Is Jimmy's coping strategy to like put up a flag that says I'm being bullied? I mean,
and why are we accepting bullying as a commonplace thing? So like people are talking, and the pressure in me is building, Dana. Like, I mean, I want to explode. God. This is probably the closest I can think about to correctivitis. Like that in my mind.
It's like that anger guy from Inside Out when he finally blows and his head blows. Yeah.
And I just find, and everyone's like giving feedback on this goal. And I said, finally there was a pause and I was like, I'm sorry. Like what's glaring to me is not what the responsibility of the student is. It's what the responsibility of the school is, which is, why is there bullying in the first place?
Yes. And why aren't they doing anything about it? Yep.
Right. But I often feel like sometimes I feel this when I feel like there needs to be a correction, like there needs to be an addition some way. But what I really love is this idea of intentionality and deliberateness is what you're talking about. Is what I'm going to say or what I have to say, do I believe that this, I guess narcissists can ask this question, do I believe that this piece of information is going to be helpful or productive for the goal of X, for the whatever we're meeting for, whatever we're interacting about, is that going to be the case? Instead of it being an impulsive loop that I have to close.
Yes.
And that's where I think like the difference
Those are good delineators, because if you know it's just like an impulsive thing, then you can maybe sit on it. And sometimes I also have to say, okay, well, I know, the crap's going to hit the fan, but it's not my problem. If it belongs to someone else. And then I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see this hit the fan.
Not my monkey, not my circus, yo.
Oh, this is going to be good when all hell breaks loose, which is terrible. But that's sort of, I would imagine in a situation like that, though, you're feeling so protective.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I go full mama bear mode. Yeah.
Oh, God.
I can't help myself. I'm like pretty mama bear over my clients. I mean, they could be 54 and they're being mistreated at work. And I'm pretty mama bear about it. And I get that. I mean, my clients have even checked me. They're like, we know how you can get about these things. Let's look at it more neutrally. That's what my clients say to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm glad you're telling me, the therapist, to be neutral. It's fine.
You could
Let me
say,
have my mama bear moment. Well, actually, what they're doing, right, is absolutely asinine. But, I think, but I do think it is this piece. And many of my clients, they do have lived experiences of the difficulty that they face socially with this type of correctivitis. I love that word, by the way. Like it's really
isn't
great.
It great?
It's a really great word. Yeah,
it sort of feels like you can't stop yourself. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
there's been some memes and some videos showing up lately on TikTok, which is like being the one that gets bullied, like these kids that get bullied. It's like, the other kids are like, it's the
Oh.
weak member of the herd.
Oh
That should be
no.
diagnostic. That should be telling the school, this kid is different, because kids do that. Their kids are cruel.
Oh.
What is going on with the kid that's getting bullied? There must be like, should this be another diagnostic indicator in the DSM? Was bullied mercilessly as a child? And
Yeah.
if they say yes, oh well, that's another, because it
Oh.
does feel like it's that it isn't that they don't have social skills, it's that their social skills aren't fitting that milieu, and then the kids are bullying them, right? So I
Yeah.
agree with you. It's not to tell the kid, do it differently so you're not bullied. That's victim blaming, right?
Yeah.
It's about what's going on in there. But I would imagine the correctivitis thing and that ability, you and I are talking about fairly higher order ways to control it, like adult brain ways to control it.
Yep.
For kids or adolescents' brains, it's going to be a much harder thing to
Yeah.
pull off. Yeah.
In that situation, my strategy there is like find your people.
Yeah.
Like find your people. If your best friend is also suffers from correctivitis, then both of you are cool. Like usually both of you are cool.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
information dumping. I mean, I know information dumping, you find other people that
Yeah.
do something similar and or don't mind being corrected, right? They're
Yeah.
like they don't
Yeah.
mind being
Exactly.
corrected.
Yes.
So, find your people then.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. And it's interesting to me, this idea of like quote unquote appropriate social skills,
Hmm.
because when my clients tend to find their people, no one really complains about their social skills, which is like really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so really, lately, whenever my clients are talking about how to act,
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
say to them, like, is that an environment that you need to be in? So
Yeah.
it might
Yeah.
be, maybe it's a college class, or something that
Right.
it's a class that they need to take, they want to take. They understand that there's, kind of there's a social kind of structure to
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? And it's like you can information dump, but let's just talk about what happens with you or what could happen when you information dump in this type of environment. Like, let's
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
walk through what that's like and what might come back to you. I call it like the
Yeah, so
social
you're not
boomerang,
teaching
kind of like,
them you're bad for wanting to info dump. You're
no,
teaching them like this may not go well in this particular setting because those folks aren't going to like it. And so
right,
if you
right.
know that, then you have some empowerment. You have some locus of control to
It's
decide
back
not
to
to do that.
locus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's always back to locus of
yeah.
control
That's
and
right.
how important that is to feel like we have some control. I mean, this is why
Yeah,
we give children choices.
yeah, yeah.
We call them fixed choices, right? It's like at the end
Hmm.
of the day, you're still going to eat those vegetables or like whatever it is, right?
Whatever. Yeah,
But you're going to have a choice about how we get there.
yeah. Right.
I used to do this with my daughter whenever we were leaving somewhere really, really fun.
Yeah,
And I'd
yeah,
set a timer and I would always just pick two numbers that I didn't really like. It didn't matter to me. Right. So do you want to leave in 13 minutes or 15 minutes? Do you want to leave in 15
Oh,
minutes or
oh,
20?
to
I
give
mean,
them a
17 minutes.
choice. Yeah,
What,
yeah.
how many? And she would choose. For
Hmm.
me, I didn't care. Like,
Yeah,
right. And
I
it was
like that.
never a problem. It was just never a problem to
Yeah,
leave.
yeah. I even do that with my students. I can tell when they're getting squirrely and I've lectured for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I want to finish a thought, I'll just say to them, I know you're getting squirrely. We're going to take a break in just a few minutes, but I want to finish this last point. Just to like give
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
that they know that, so that they, again, it's that basket. How far out do you have to go in there to feel contained?
Yeah.
And really, that's a lot of what we're talking about with that correctivitis, that sense of the itis part about it. We're not telling you you're wrong and having that info and wanting to correct. The itis part is in feeling like you can't stop yourself, but you can. And one of the biggest lessons I learned, the most important lessons I learned way before I ever knew I was autistic in therapy years and years and years ago, was my therapist saying, you don't have to engage you could sit back and just listen. You don't have to offer something. In my family growing up, if you didn't jump in and get loud and make your point, you weren't going to be heard. So I had that kind
Mm.
of, way of being. And it's just, you could just sit back and listen. You don't have to jump in. It's exhausting to do that. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. It worked really well at the beginning with people that knew me. They kept being like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just chilling." But now
Yeah.
it's liberating to be able to not have to correct or not have to say something. I can just be like,
Yeah.
"Okay." It's because it's exhausting to manage
Yep.
that if you feel like you have to do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, holding up the dam,
Mhm.
reinforcing
Mhm.
the dam so it doesn't that is so there's so much energy
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
than, like,
Yeah.
letting the water flow and being like, "Not my water."
Yeah. There's
Like,
an awesome
"Not
episode
mine."
of Big Bang where Amy Farrah Fowler says that Sheldon has a completion kind of OCD problem, which he kind of does, right?
Yep.
And so she starts to do all these things with him and doesn't let him finish them. So like he's doing
I
the Jack in the
She
Box,
sets the
ding,
stuff
ding,
up, oh,
ding.
the whole
Yeah.
episode, right? She's, like, setting
Yes.
stuff up. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
gets halfway through it and then she stops and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I'm trying to desensitize you." And you're like, "Well, that makes sense from a neurotypical desensitization." She leaves and they show him run around the
Right,
house
and
and
finish.
do all the and finish them all. And then he's like, "Oh." And I love that because it sort of really does speak to the need to have that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how and when and why and where and do you get to be the one to decide? He actually just waits till she leaves. I remember watching that episode with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, that's too bad. He had to finish it." I'm like, "No, that's fine.
No.
He
Yeah.
waited till she left, and he knew he needed it, and he did it in a way that didn't bother anybody, and he felt
Yeah.
better. What's wrong with that?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good point." So choose your correcting wisely and see what it's like for you. Practice not saying something and holding on to it just to see what happens in you as a
Yeah.
little distress tolerance, right? You don't have to say that. You might be surprised by how easy it is and how much less energy you expend. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a muscle. Like, look at it as, like,
Totally. Yeah.
repetitions, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a muscle, that, you just flex.
Mhm.
The funny
Mhm.
that episode, Dana, it's so funny because I can see that episode because the last item that he finishes are the dominoes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And because she stops the dominoes in the middle
And the look on his
and
face when she stops him, he's just like,
what?
"How
And
could you
then,
do
like,
that?" Yeah.
he
Uh,
finishes the dominoes because it's the very last thing I remember.
yeah.
And he falls over. Falls over and lays on the ground.
Yeah.
And there is just so much relief
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
just, having it be done. And I just laughed because I think he even like played a game against himself. It was like
Yeah, he did.
Uno,
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
some
Yep.
game. And like he like did it both sides, and he did it super quick, right? Like he finished everything. And
Went through all, yeah,
um
exactly. Yeah.
we all, I mean, embracing who you are, and but having choices, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
and you have choices when you feel like you're efficacious, that
Yeah.
you have efficacy, you have skills, you can control your life. And
Mhm.
if it's too hard to always like be holding back the correctivitis, right?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it's like, check your environments.
Yeah. That's right. Good, really good point. That might not be a good environment for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Just check
Very
your
good point.
environments,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love it. I love it.
Cool.
I can see t-shirts now, Dana. We have so many t-shirts to make, Dana.
We
We
do.
gotta,
Yeah, we do.
yeah,
I-
yeah.
Yeah.
Corrective.
We're on it.
What would our t-shirt, our correctivitis? Do you suffer from correctivitis? I think we could do that, right? Do
I think
you
it
suffer
should
from
be well, actually.
Well, actually, it could be that. And then but I was thinking if you suffer from correctivitis, right? The back could be just a
Oh,
bunch of
yeah.
like fine print of like 30 lines of garbage, like on the medication commercials, and it's like,
Oh,
well, you
yeah, where
could
they do
take
that
X
low
medicine
voicing
with the
may
side
cause
effects of
you to die and might cause your eyes to pop out. Yeah.
right, like the
Yeah.
side effect warnings
You
are
could
like
just
longer than the
say
commercial
everything.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like well actually.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That could
Okay.
be a signature. Well, actually, I like it.
Well, actually, be good to you.
So feel free in the comments to correct us,
Yeah.
or if we got anything wrong, please let us know,
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
Don't let us know.
We're very, I mean, listen, I mean, I think, Dana and I are getting better with trolls.
Yeah.
Because we're able to just kind of maybe try to block those people out. But I mean, for those
Yeah.
of us in this community, and you know who you are, there's so many
We
now.
get you. Yeah.
We get
Yeah.
you and you get us. And yeah, we're always open. I love reading the comments. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's really exciting. And I'll go back to reading comments when I can see again. So I'll just say that. I can't see anything. I can't see what people are saying. I can't. Damn.
I'll go back when I can see. It just, there's so much in that statement. I'll return to my regularly scheduled life when I can see again. It's the
Beep.
amount
I mean, like,
what we put up with to try to do
yeah,
things. It's insane. Yeah.
it's really insane. I mean,
And
on
just
that
so you
note,
know, if there's ever a zombie apocalypse, I'll help you.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't just be like, Gwen, wrong way.
Yeah.
Wrong
No, that
way.
one's dead. That one's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I won't know. I'm just going to tell you right now.
We all got to look out for Gwen if there's a zombie
Yes,
apocalypse. And
please.
she
If
doesn't
there's a
ever
zombie
contact me.
apocalypse, just grab me and run. I will just
Feel
move my
free
feet.
to correct her when she doesn't have her contacts in. Yeah.
That
Report back.
I would not be offended by the correctivitis in that moment.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
All
All
right.
right, everyone. We'll see you. Well,
Or
Dana, we'll see
not.
you in the next episode. Bye.